今天要分享的改编故事是纸上谈兵，希望能在学习英语的路上给你带来收获。你的每个点赞和订阅都是对我莫大的鼓励。那么，咱们开始吧。
Over 2,000 years ago, China was divided into several warring states. It was a brutal time, a time of constant battle and shifting alliances. In the state of Zhao, there lived a renowned general named Zhao Shi. He was a tough, battle-hardened commander who had led his army to countless victories. His word was law on the battlefield. He had a son named Zhao Kuo. From a young age, Zhao Kuo was different from his father. He wasn't interested in the mud and blood of real combat. Instead, he loved books. He devoured every text on military strategy he could find. He studied the tactics of famous generals from centuries past. He memorized formations, supply routes, and attack plans. And the boy was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He could recite entire chapters from memory. He could debate the nuances of a particular battle with the confidence of a veteran. When he talked about war, his arguments were flawless, his logic unbreakable. People were amazed. They would say, "That Zhao Kuo, he's a genius. He's even sharper than his father, the famous general," but his father, Zhao Shi, was not impressed. In fact, he was deeply worried. One day, after Zhao Kuo had won another debate about military tactics, his wife said to him, "Our son is so talented. You should be proud." Zhao Shi just shook his head. "Talented? He lives in a world of words," he said. "War is not a debate. It is not a book. War is chaos. It's the scream of dying men, the confusion of fog, the terror of the unknown. You cannot predict it with a book. My son talks about it as if it were a game of chess. But the pieces are not wood, they are human lives." He looked his wife directly in the eye and made a grim prediction. "Listen to me carefully. If our son is never put in charge of our army, we will be lucky. But if the king ever gives him command, he will lead our finest men to a massacre. The grave of our family, and perhaps our state, will be dug by Zhao Kuo." Years passed. Zhao Shi grew old and eventually died. The great minister Lin Xiangru was also gravely ill. The only pillar left defending the state of Zhao was the old, respected general, Lian Pe. And then, the enemy struck. The powerful state of Qin launched a massive invasion. They marched towards the Zhao city of Chongping. General Lian Pe, a master of defensive warfare, sized up the situation. The Qin army was massive, aggressive, and well led. To meet them in an open battle would be suicide. So Lian Pe did the smart thing. He retreated behind strong fortifications. He dug in. He stored his food and water. And he waited. Day after day, the Qin army would line up outside his walls, shouting insults, challenging him to fight. But Lianpe just smiled and did nothing. His strategy was simple: outlast them. The Qin general was furious. He couldn't break through Lianpe's defenses. If this dragged on, his own army would run out of supplies first. They needed a new plan. So they turned to an old weapon: deception. They sent spies into the capital of Zhao, carrying gold to bribe officials and spread rumors. Soon, a whisper was circulating through the court and the streets. General Lianpe is a coward. He's too old and too scared to fight. The Qin army isn't afraid of him at all. Then, the spies would add the key lie: the only man the Qin army truly fears is Zhao Kuo. They say he is a military genius. If he were in command, the Qin would be crushed. The king of Zhao, a man named King Xiaocheng, heard these rumors. He was young and impatient. He was tired of waiting. He wanted a glorious victory, not a long, boring standoff. The whispers played perfectly into his fears and desires. Of course, he thought. Lianpe is old. He's lost his nerve. We need the brilliant young mind, Zhao Kuo. When the king announced his decision to replace Lianpe with Zhao Kuo, alarm bells rang everywhere. The dying minister Lin Xiangru, barely able to lift his head from his sickbed, sent an urgent message: "Your Majesty, you cannot do this. Zhao Kuo knows how to read his father's books, but he does not know how to adapt. He is rigid. He will not be able to change when the situation changes." Then, Zhao Kuo's own mother, remembering her husband's prophecy, came to the court. She begged the king on her knees. "My lord, my son is not fit for this. His father said he would bring disaster upon us. Please, do not send him." But King Xiaocheng was stubborn. His mind was made up. "The decision is final," he said. "Zhao Kuo will command the army." So Zhao Kuo, the bookish strategist, rode out to the front lines to take command of the 400,000 soldiers of Zhao. He was full of confidence, his head swimming with all the brilliant tactics he had read about. The moment he arrived, he threw out all of Lianpe's careful plans. "No more hiding behind walls like cowards," he declared. He changed the officers, replacing the experienced veterans with younger men who agreed with him. He revised the military rules. And he prepared for a grand, decisive attack, just as the book said a great general should. On the other side, the Qin army had secretly replaced their commander with their most ruthless and brilliant general, Bai Qi. When Bai Qi heard that the boy who fought with words had taken over, he smiled a cold smile. "We have them," he said. The trap was set. Zhao Kuo led his army out for a massive assault. As planned, the Qin forces pretended to retreat in panic. Zhao Kuo, seeing this, was overjoyed. "Just as I predicted," he shouted. "Pursue them. Don't let them escape." He led his main force in a wild chase, right into a preset trap. Suddenly, from the surrounding hills, 50,000 elite Qin soldiers emerged, sealing off the escape route. At the same time, another Qin force cut off the Zhao army's supply lines from the rear. Zhao Kuo and his main army were surrounded. They were trapped in a valley with no food and no way out. Days turned into weeks. The food ran out. The soldiers were so hungry they began to eat each other. Desperate attempts to break through the encirclement failed, one after another. Zhao Kuo tried every tactic he had read about in his books. He tried surprise attacks at night. He tried splitting his forces. Nothing worked. Reality, as his father had warned, was not like a book. In the books, the enemy always did what they were supposed to do. But Bai Qi did not read the same books. After 46 days, with his army starving and on the verge of collapse, Zhao Kuo made his final move. He selected his bravest, strongest troops and led them in one last, desperate charge. He himself rode at the front, hoping to break through the Qin lines. But as he charged, a volley of arrows whistled through the air. One of them found its mark. Zhao Kuo, the brilliant strategist who could win any argument, was struck down and killed. With their commander dead, the Zhao army fell into chaos. They surrendered. And what happened next was one of the most brutal massacres of the ancient world. The Qin general Bai Qi, fearing that the captured soldiers would rebel, ordered all 400,000 of them to be killed. Most were buried alive in mass graves. Almost an entire generation of Zhao's men were wiped out in a single stroke, all because one man confused talking about war with fighting it. That man, Zhao Kuo, gave us the idiom we use today. Talking about battle on paper. Paper is flat. Life is not. A strategy on a page is clean. Reality is messy. So here is the question the story leaves us with. Where in your own life are you just talking about the battle on paper? Maybe you've read a dozen books on how to start a business, but you've never actually tried to sell anything. You know the theory, but you haven't felt the fear. You've memorized the fitness plan, but you haven't felt the burn. You've studied the phrases for learning English, but you haven't sat down to have a real conversation with a stranger. Don't let your life become a battle you only fight on paper. The world doesn't need more people who can talk a perfect game. It needs people who are willing to step onto the field.
下集请移步主页观看。